Hey everybody, this is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook video about the cows are coming home to roost, and you, personally, are going into lockdown. Lockdown. Um, yeah. So, anyways, you know, I don't personally know if you specifically are going into lockdown. However, I've been seeing this topic a lot because of current events, which, if you haven't been keeping up on them, there are there's currently a large amount of the H5n1 avian flu or bird flu virus going around in birds. It's been infecting birds for many years, slowly but surely, churning through them, killing all of our feathered friends, sickening them. Um, in the last few years, uh, you remember that there was a lot of chickens and eggs, millions, that got the flu, and this was a big reason why. One of the reasons why the price of eggs and chicken related products went up. There's other elements to that. There was already inflation, but the eggs and chicken prices were even more impacted. And so, this has been always in the background, um, on the minds of scientists, on the minds of researchers, on the minds of people who work in you know, the chicken industry and in the agricultural industry. Obviously, the companies the companies, beef companies, poultry, etc. They are very much worried about this. And But now it's really coming to the forefront because there's been a huge number of dairy cows that have been infected in 16 states and counting. There's been a lot of, I don't know if where you are, what your feed or what media you're watching, you're getting shown this or not. I mean, a lot of this is happening on Twitter. Twitter is a place where a lot of these updates are coming through. They may or may not be showing up. I think they're, at least in some mainstream media, you're seeing it. I've seen some mainstream media sources, like the science.com has talked about it. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about how exactly this is going to go. Sorry, I'm just trying to set up my chat over here. Before I get deeper into it, maybe we'll just start with some of the basic details. Let me see if I have one of these here. Yeah. Okay. So this is from a science.org article. Just to get some of the ground details from mainstream Western source. Let's put it that way. Some of the ground information being put out by a mainstream Western source. Okay. Bird flu discovered in U.S. dairy cows is disturbing. Scientists who tracks infections on cattle farms discusses implications of recently announced virus. Okay, and that's obviously a bird. This bird is obviously speaking to the cows. The bird is now you see the bird is not masking, and that is just poor panini etiquette. It's ridiculous, right? There's no freedom of speech in the West. There's no freedom to do even important, necessary, the speech that should be tolerated is you can't even do that. You gotta cloak everything you say with these ridiculous terms. I've seen so many YouTube videos doing that, so I'm trying my best, but I can't do that. So I know it's gonna hurt me in the algorithm, whatever. The bird is really trying to give those cows H5n1. I think that this bird is a biological weapon. I'm just kidding. It's a very nice bird, I'm sure. Birds don't have the cognitive faculties, as far as I understand, maybe crows, to understand what KN95 and 95 respirators are. So no shade to you. I'm sorry, bird. The bird flu virus that has wreaked havoc upon the world appears to have surfaced in U.S. dairy cows. The first time this viral subtype has been documented in any cattle. 3 U.S. states, Texas, Kansas, and New Mexico, on 25th March, reported cows sickened with what scientists are presuming is the same H5n1 strain of influenza that has killed hundreds of millions of poultry and wild birds. The cattle infections are spoiling milk, causing limited disease in mostly older animals. Dead birds have also been found on some of the farms, which may explain the source of the virus. Public health officials have stressed that the risk to humans from the virus remains low. Okay, so remember what I'm saying right now. This is not necessarily true. Let's just put it lightly. So I'm not saying that what this article says is exactly true, and you should make all your decisions based on what's coming out of this article. This is what you're being told. From science.org. You can go look up who funds them, what their political structure looks like. But anyway, the so-called highly pathogenic avian influenza (HPAI) virus spreading in birds has already been documented to infect dozens of other mammalian species. I've read one of the quotes is 40 mammal species have been infected, but it rarely spreads between them. Earlier this month, HPAI was found in a goat in Minnesota, the first case in U.S. livestock. It's also been found in cats. Gregory Gray, an epidemiologist at the University of Texas Medical Branch, calls new detections in cows across multiple states a worrisome development because it may signal this bird flu strain is spreading directly between cattle instead of via birds, and has mutated in ways that could allow it to better infect people. But preliminary studies on the affected cows show no signs that the virus has changed, the National Veterinary Service Laboratory said in a statement yesterday. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is not requiring farmers to cull affected herds, as it does when the virus attacks poultry farms. So that's a interesting difference. Is that because as I mentioned, right, the price of chicken and eggs and egg-related products, again, skyrocketed right a few years ago, and a lot of that was due to the need to cull the birds. But apparently, the cows don't need to be culled, right, by the USDA. And part of this is that pasteurization kills the virus in any milk produced by an infected cow. So, one of the things happening here. One side note: pasteurization is a process of basically slowly heating the milk, to a temperature that is appropriate to kill off pathogens, viruses, right? And it's a process that was discovered, named for a particular individual. That's why it's called pasteurization. And it's sanitizes. It's like hand sanitizer. It's like UV lights for airborne viruses. It's a sanitization process, right? That you can do to milk that will make it much safer to drink, right? However, there are many, many, many people who purposefully, for whatever, let's be generous and say ill-informed purpose, people choose to drink non-pasteurized milk. Okay, so Holly knows many of these people, unfortunately, from one side of the family. Sometimes they call it raw milk. Okay, so the raw milk, which is basically unpasteurized, untreated milk straight from the cow. Right, basically the cow's milk, and then the milk goes straight from the cow to the human drinking it. Right. If you choose to drink raw milk, it can make you and your loved ones sick. Raw milk has not undergone a process called pasteurization that kills disease-causing germs. Pasteurized milk is safe and healthy. When milk pasteurization began in the early 1900s, deaths and diarrheal illnesses in young children declined dramatically. So, one public safety announcement, one Silver Spook PSA is please don't drink raw milk. Just in general. I mean, H5n1, apocalyptic, pandemonium, collapse, or otherwise. Please don't drink raw milk, because if you drink raw milk, you're increasing your likelihood of contracting all kinds of diseases, salmonella. There's blood, piss, and feces. Holly professionally milked cows, in a industrial grade milking facility. So Holly knows about what actually happens when cows are milked. And there is all kinds of things. There's dirt, there's grime, literal feces is going into milk. Okay, they're not like giant, huge cow turds and cow pies are not just being thrown in there, but there are bits of all kinds of very dangerous substances that are going like there's sometimes that's something that comes out. Now it's not the majority of it, but there's dangerous there's all kind of dangerous pathogens that are getting in milk. On top of, if the cows are sick with something like avian flu, I should mention now, it has a 53% death rate in humans. Okay, so yes, that's the case fatality rate, and yes, that's the what we know so far. But as far as the best numbers that we have from the WHO, that is in the last 20 years, there's been 800 plus cases in about 400 something, and it's about, which comes out to 53%, or slightly. You have a slightly less than 50% chance of surviving bird flu, is another way to think about that. So unless you want to play fast and loose with that, I would not be drinking raw milk. Okay. But also, even if you don't have that, there's lots of other illnesses you can get from drinking raw milk. So please don't do that. Okay. This has been your happy cow, your fowl and bovine friend Sesame Street educational video section of the stream. So you're welcome. Anyway, don't drink raw milk. It seems obvious, but lots of like alternative lifestyle, U.S. Western, how should we say that? Crunchy, cottage core. We call it the plague-ridden cottage cheese core lifestylists. You know what I'm saying? The trad wife TikTok crowd, they like to drink this raw milk. So they churn the raw milk with piss, poop, and blood and bird flu into butter. They're like, look at me baking my bread, and they eat my raw milk. So, I mean, many of these people will unfortunately be, by drinking their milk, they will be liquidated, and and no pun intended. So that is sad, and possibly not, depending on who you are. But there's like a lot of the conservative and liberal and progressive version of these, like a lot of the liberal, like more woo woo hippie Californian new agey people, and then there's the people going to all their raves and drinking a lot of ayahuasca, and then there's also the conservative side of that. But they all, from both sides, there's Democratic and Republican equivalent of people who drink raw milk, right? They also drink raw water and raw sewage. You've got people like Liver King. These are like the conservative Jim Bro dude. He doesn't take a bath. He doesn't wipe anything. He doesn't clean anything. He just eats raw meat. And if he drank milk, he would drink raw milk, right? Or at least pretend to grift and make some money. And so that is, that's, it's not healthy. Okay. It's not actually good for you. So I just want to get that clear. So let's move on from that. So anyways, but let's come back to the article though. So bird flu, epidemiologist in the Texas medical branch calls the new detections in cows across multiple states a worrisome development, because I'm going to put this up on the screen because you have to just look at a wall of text, but I'm reading from the science article. Oh crap. Okay. Oop. There you go. So, Gregory Gray, an epidemiologist at the University of Texas Medical Branch, calls the new detections in cows across multiple states a worrisome development because it signals that the bird flu strain is spreading directly between cattle instead of via birds, and has mutated in ways that could allow it to better infect people. But preliminary, because as far as we know, the bird to human and cow to human leaps of bird flu have not resulted in human to human spread so far that we know of, or that most people have access to. Let's put it that way. But it's unknown at the moment because the bird flu is rapidly mutating, right? That preliminary studies in affected cows show no signs the virus has changed. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is not requiring farmers to cull affected herds. Again, several other of the four influenza virus types are known to infect cattle, but this is the first HPAI to sicken them. Only Texas has officially confirmed that the bird flu found in its cows is the h5n1 subtype. None of the other 3 states have yet reported whether it is a clade causing widespread death. Anyway, testing for Texas shows consistency with the strain seen in wild birds. How serious of a threat does HPI in cattle represent? It's worrisome. So this is from somebody who works in cattle, right? So they are worried about it. We most recently saw the infections in goats. We've seen all the wildlife being affected with the hotter pathogenic avian flu, including strange infection of carnivores, bears and wolves also have caught the virus. Bears, wolves, cats, dogs, many different birds, obviously. It's disturbing. We need to figure this thing out because if the virus continues to change, it could move into other species, including humans. It may be in humans already. We just have to keep a pulse on it. And if we don't work together with agriculture, we won't know very well what's circulating. Okay, let me just save that little sentence right there. Okay, we have to keep a pulse on it. It could be in humans already. Okay, so we have to keep track of where the virus is. Okay, just think about that and think about how well your institutions are keeping track of currently ongoing pandemics. Okay? Just think about that for a second and then have nightmares. If we don't work together with agriculture, we won't know very well what's circulating. So, I'm going to come back to that, right? This is part of why I call this the cows are coming home to roost, right? Okay. In some ways, these influenza viruses are changing all the time. There's pretty good evidence that all 4 types have been infecting cattle for a number of years. There's a very nice report in 2019. But in that report, authors said there's maybe something about cattle that makes them them sort of immune to serious disease and transmission. Well, something has changed because there are multiple state epizootic with animals becoming ill. And the likelihood that the transmission is from cow to cow and farm to farm is much higher than before. So the virus has evolved. The animals have changed, the environment has changed, and the virus has evolved, and things are different now. So things are accelerating when it comes to the avian flu, H5n1. But to be clear, do we know this is transmitting cow to cow? We don't know. I don't think anybody's done those experiments. I would think that would be one of the things that people would want to investigate rather quickly. Okay, now remember, right? Think about it. How well is the CDC and the WHO dealing with the historical really bad virus we dealt with for the last 4 years? How have they dealt with it? Have they investigated and got information to people rather quickly and accurately? How has the governments done, right? How have your governments done on that? How has society done? Has it done really well on that? Think about that. Okay? How does a cow get infected by a bird? That's a great question. There's a mixing of habitat, certainly. There's a sharing of water. We found equine influenza in camels in Mongolia, and it was probably sharing of a water hole in the desert. There's probably multiple ways that wild birds can mix with cattle. What is the virus doing to the cows? Is it a respiratory disease? There was talk that some of the dairy cattle were suffering gastrointestinal illnesses. Has this virus changed in some way? That it's finding new receptors in cattle? Okay, consider the recent pandemic, right? I'm sorry, the recent panini that we have all gone through, right? how has that virus changed, right? How has the I gotta come up with a good name. How has the SARS virus changed, right? Well, initially, in the beginning in 2020, it was mostly respiratory, right? Sneezing, coughing, loss of smell, sore throat, difficulty breathing, right? Later on, right, somewhere in 2023, you had variants, like some of the Omicron variants showed digestive problems, right? Explosive diarrhea, right? And so it's actually something that is also changing about bird flu. I'm not saying that like the h5n1 virus and the 2020 virus that we all humans experienced is evolving in the same way, but like this is one thing that happens with the viruses. And so now the bird flu is showing gastrointestinal pathology in cows. Okay, and that's something that's also showing you that the virus is changing and possibly changing to become more infectious to humans. Okay. What have you learned from your study that is looking for infections in farmers and their cattle? We've been funded now for about 8 months. Initially, we thought we would be able to work with many farms in Texas because they're concerned about keeping their animals free from disease. But there's been a real resistance to collaborating with us. There's concern that we might find something that would damage their business. Okay, so I mean, I'm obviously dancing around the bush here, but basically, it's going to be catastrophically bad, given the current state of things, which are worse than 2020. Just to have a moment of realness, the H5n1 is going to be absolutely horrific, and one of the reasons why is because that same thing, right? The cattle, agricultural capitalist corporations, right? People who run dairy farms, people who run beef facilities, they are worried about damage to their businesses. In the same way that all businesses, right? Hotel, airlines, who lobbied and pushed for the decrease of the 9-day isolation period down to 5 days, down to 1 day, and now it's basically there is no isolation period, right? You remember this? So, who pushed for opening up, pretending like, the 2020 human virus that we all got, or most of the people got, like that was totally fine and a little cold and mild, right? So in the same way that was catastrophically bad, 30 million plus people have died. You have I talk about this frequently, so I won't reiterate all of the consequences of the human virus that went around in 2020 and still goes around. But like the business community, where it was a major, the business, the greed motive is a big reason why the information was lacking to the public, the policy response was lacking, the actions were lacking, information was hidden, information was just lied about. For example, the airborne nature of the human 2020 virus that we've always known, the WHO and the CDC and governments have always known, and they've been lying about the whole time because it benefits business for it not to be airborne, because it costs money to deal with that. It costs customers can't get on planes, go to stores, and go into buildings as easily and as freely, and it could be disruptive to business. So they said just lie about that while everyone gets sick, disabled, and dies. Right? So that same process is happening when it comes to the cattle and fowl business. In particular, at this point, because with the chicken, with the big egg, chicken and egg companies, right? I'm not saying that what started the chicken or the egg. I'm saying like the companies that are invested in selling chicken and eggs, those companies, they've kind of been hit by this, but they could continue to be hit by this. But the cattle companies are trying to dodge, right? They're trying to minimize this as much as possible, right? Another way to say that is the cattle companies would like the government and health institutions to lie about this as much as possible, because they've already said, um, the more that the H5N1 is shown to be damaging, could get into the milk, could spread to humans, that they've already said, we are very worried as corporations, as capitalist corporations with the dollar, almighty dollar, at the top of our mind at all moments. We are very worried that this will damage our business. So, and of course, the business owns the government in a place like the United States. So that means that whatever information you get, I'm not saying that what information you're getting, you absolutely should not do. You should do the opposite of everything. But what I am saying is that it's going to be tainted by that, in the same way that many facts about the 2020 human virus were tainted, right? How serious it was, what to do about it, how airborne it was, right? Where it came from, whether the lockdowns were needed, right? All the kind of things, right? All the kind of things that people wish they knew back then, that they had to find out by having catastrophic illnesses that are like worse than cancer, HIV, and worse than getting cancer, HIV, and dementia at the same time, because sometimes it can cause that. People can't even walk 10 steps without passing out now, and they would have liked to have some more information maybe in 2020. So in that, from getting the 2020 human virus, right? So the H5N1, right, is going to have huge amounts of incorrect information about it, and the time at which you get that information, right? So like, if H5N1 is spreading rapidly in an airborne fashion from cow to cow, if H5N1 is right in the milk, one interesting fact I recently learned, it takes 3 days on average, 3 days, usually 3 days or less, for the cow to, when the milk is taken out of the cow, to get the milk from the cow, once it's milked, to the store, is 3 days. So and obviously, like, this has been happening, but so any milk that you're going to buy on Thursday, it came out of a cow on Monday, right? Milk that you're going to buy today, if it's Saturday today, that came out of a cow on Wednesday, on average. And it did, because milk goes bad fast. So and I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy milk, but I'm just saying that, like, because if you're drinking pasteurized milk, then that's a fairly safe way to be drinking milk. If you're drinking raw milk, right? If millions of people in the United States drink raw milk, right? There's a lot of people that drink raw milk. It's more than 1%, but if 1% of the population drinks raw milk, that's 3 million people, 3.4 million people, right? So anyway, long story. So there's a lot. I said a lot of information there, but the main takeaway is that there's lots of possible directions that this can go into. There's a lot of possible directions that the H5N1 could move. We don't really know exactly where it's going, but whatever is actually happening, we should take the previous and ongoing 2020 human virus spread and response, right, as a blueprint going forward, because nothing has changed. Like, the CDC, the WHO, the U.S. government, and U.S. corporations, and the Western corporations generally, and Western governments, they haven't changed at all, right? They haven't gotten better. There hasn't been, like, all the people who lied about COVID being, all the people who lied about the SARS-CoV virus being airborne, right, at the WHO, at the CDC, all the doctors, right, all the government officials, they haven't all been fired, right? They haven't been replaced by non-lying, multi-million person killing specialists and doctors, right? It's the same head of the CDC. It's the same heads, WHO. None of these people have lost jobs, right? The incentive structure of a plutocracy where the money buys the government policy, buys the medical buys the WHO and buys the CDC. The WHO is majority funded by the United States and billionaire class is what it is. So these institutions have not changed at all. They're the mechanisms by which they find information, decide which information to share, right, and what policies to institute, that has not changed at all. So we have to assume that whatever happens with H5N1, it's going to be catastrophically mishandled. It's going to be catastrophically destructive. If it continues this evolution, which is to say getting more contagious, changing in the way that it spreads, infecting more and different types of mammals and other animals, and then eventually, if it spreads to humans, in a way in which, if the H5N1 virus evolves to be able to easily spread human to human, it will be absolutely apocalyptically mishandled and maliciously mishandled to benefit profit and to harm humans and average people. That's what will happen. It's not really a question, and it's going to be worse than the 2020 human virus, because we're already many of the resources and the will and where the society people are is at a way worse position. The resources the government has is less, right? And they're actively continuing to lie about the current state of the 2020 human virus, right? So anyway, well, long story short, that means that you should take that information and factor that into your future decisions, right? I mean, don't wait to find out. Don't wait to find out from your government and from the medical experts at the CDC and the WHO. Don't wait to find out. Like, don't take their word for it and then later on figure out, oh my God, half my family is dead because 53% of us died from bird flu that we got drinking the milk or drinking the raw milk, eating beef, eating poorly cooked food, eating poorly cooked eggs, eating poorly cooked chicken. That's also very common, by the way, in the Western, certainly in the Western mainstream middle to upper middle class culture. I try to be very diplomatic about it. It's very common to have improperly cooked food. In fact, there's one of the most popular influencers, right? Multiple of them are just propagating the idea that not eating uncooked meat is the best thing ever. Like Liver King, I mean, Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson have had PragerU regulars have said things along these lines, you know. And also in the liberal side, you've got the Gwyneth Paltrows. There's a huge, as I've already alluded to, there's a huge industry that's just about not properly sanitizing food, not having hygiene. Like Jake Gyllenhaal was just on podcast along with Ashton Kutcher. He's recently in Roadhouse, right? Propagating the idea that not taking a bath is good. And so, which is not true. Okay, just in case you're curious about that, that's false. It's very unfortunate. So what that means is that, like, there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna get catastrophically ill. Now, like, at the start of the COVID pandemic, there was a 20% death rate, right, in 2020 for people who contacted the SARS virus, right? Okay, now they're saying it's 0.1%. That's incorrect for reasons I'm not going to get into at the moment. So when they say, okay, let's get into the H5N1 death rate. So when they say that H5N1 has a slightly over 50% death rate. Okay, so can bird flu cause the next pandemic? In a recent rise of events, experts point out their concerns over the bird flu pandemic's possible. I'm having a website catastrophic spam collapse. I have over marketing virus in my website. I'm sorry. In a recent rise of events, experts have pointed out their concerns over the bird flu pandemic's possible rapid spread. It might result in a remarkably large death toll, and it could be 100 times worse than the COVID pandemic. Experts who voiced concerns about the potential for a new pandemic during a recent briefing on the H5n1 strain of bird flu were cited in the paper. Scientists caution the virus is nearing a tipping point where it could initiate a global pandemic. So, and this obviously where I'm not saying that you are going to go into a lockdown. I just kind of put that on there to get people to click on the thing, because apparently that's people like things that are typed in all caps. They like their capital letters around here. Anyways, Dr. Suresh Kuchibudi, a prominent bird flu expert, issued a warning saying H5n1's ability to infect various mammals, including humans, we're nearing a dangerous point where the virus could trigger a pandemic. So many experts are already, very much worried that we're at a tipping point where this could rapidly, slide into a human. There's already many birds getting sick, but a human to human transmission that would cause human pandemic, and this would be catastrophic. When a man from Texas contracted H5n1, given that humans lack immunity to this strain, the European Food Safety Agency issued a warning on Wednesday regarding potential for widespread bird flu pandemic and if the virus were to spread among humans. According to the WHO, since 2003, 50% of individuals infected have died. So the fatality rate is 52 out of every 100 cases that they know about. Meanwhile, the mortality rate for COVID-19 has decreased from 20% at the beginning to 0.1% currently. So that's I'm going to talk about this 0.1% thing in a bit and how it's calculated. But that's there's problems with that. What is H5n1 flu? Is considered highly pathogenic because it causes severe and other fatal illnesses in poultry. Can also cause illnesses in humans. Okay. Handling infected poultry is a risk factor. Human to cat bird flu usually have symptoms that include fever, cough, sore throat, muscle aches, conjunctivitis. Many people who are catching the bird flu, we're talking about. I'm gonna click this off now. Getting conjunctivitis, so like red eye, kind of looks like it resembles a pink eye. Like a lot of you have a very sick looking eye. But it is not just conjunctivitis. That is a manifestation. That is a symptom of the bird flu. But you also have breathing problems, pneumonia, that may be fatal, conjunctivitis, gastrointestinal symptoms, encephalitis, and encephalopathy has also been reported. The reported mortality rate of highly pathogenic H5n1 avian influenza in a human is high. WHO data indicates 60% of cases classified as H5n1 specifically result in death. So H5n1, I think that specific strain has a 60%. That's well over 50%. That's almost 2/3 of people die. According to the WHO, 52 out of every 100 people diagnosed with okay, this is like slightly contradictory then. 52 out of every 100 people diagnosed have died, with a total of 462 out of 887 cases. In contrast, the current fatality rate is less than of the COVID is less than 0.1%. Okay, again, this is like repeat information. So, okay, now this is let's look closely at this. What are they saying? What are they saying about how it is spread? Okay. So this is in the, obviously this is Financial Express, but this is like publicized WHO data about the bird flu. Okay, so the spread. How does it spread? Human cases of H5n1 infection usually occur through direct or close contact with infected birds or their droppings. So obviously, and I've heard this from many, individuals that have given better information than not. This is the difficulty of the epistemological Library of Babel, library of mass disinformation nightmare that we live in, which is that we have to try to find out the best information. It's weirdly enough, or maybe not weirdly, it's like the COVID conscious, certain sub, just regular humans discussing with each other information on Twitter happens to be like one of the best places to get the most up-to-date information, and most accurate information. It's not really has anything to do with Elon Musk particularly. It's more to do with the kinds of people and the emergent properties, the emergent zeitgeists of the communities and types of people who have associated and interacted and continue to interact and engage in certain Twitter spaces. I think that's part of the deal. It's hard to find this stuff out in many other places. As some people have commented, it's difficult to find, accurate, accurate human health, in particular the 2020 human virus related information on this website, right? On YouTube, it can be difficult. I have to even try to get my videos. I have to constantly try to evade speaking too directly because the digital AI, the unhinged HAL 9000 AI will vaporize my visibility if I say too many things. I can watch it happen on my list of videos. But anyways, so how does it spread though, right? How does it spread? According to Dr. Saxena, transmission from human to human is rare but possible. The virus also spreads through contact with contaminated surfaces or objects. It is true that if you are directly handling the birds, then there's a likelihood that you're gonna, as far as I understand, there's a very high likelihood that you have a far higher likelihood than somebody who is not a professional bird handler. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The birds that are infected, the birds that are in very, 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 very close proximity with each other are the kind of birds that are in factory farming, right? Like factory farm chickens, they are like literally on top of each other a lot of the time. And how imagine like you were piled on top of a million other humans living like that. How could you not be constantly infecting? How could a virus entering a arrangement like this not basically rip through that entire population, in a matter of days, potentially, right? It's like you are literally. I mean, this is like a COVID conscious person's nightmare. You be unmasked, unvaccinated, no clean air, no HEPA filters, no even 4 to 6 feet. Doesn't matter if it's airborne, but you're just like on top of each other, and this, of course, it's going to rapidly spread. And so if you're in one of these areas, and it's also, if you notice, it's an enclosed indoor space where you have thousands or potentially millions of infected animals, their saliva, their urine, their pee, their body matter, their feathers, any of which could be infected, are just in the dust, in the air, in every nook and cranny, just everywhere, right? So of course you have an extremely high risk. If you're around a H5n1 human contagious strain, you have an extremely high risk if you're working in that. I mean, it just makes total sense. Like this, here's somebody, right? He is like standing in a giant vat of bird flu, potentially, right? So, these people are at the highest risk. Sorry, I'm gonna go back to my article. Not raw milk. Okay, how does it spread? Okay, but now, okay, so number one, that it is true that you are in high risk job if you are in direct contact with these infected birds in a poultry operation. There has also been cow to human transmission, however, that we know, right? And also humans have to work around cows. Like Holly is one person who has had to work around cows, so you're more likely to get h5n1 from that cow if they're infected. According to the transmission from human to human is rare but possible. The virus can also spread through contact with contaminated surfaces or objects. Okay, now this is where they're starting to lie. Okay, and there's already contradictory data. Let me see if I can point this out here. Sorry, I got it. Where's my science? Okay, you're already seeing contradictory data. There's that video, right? There's that video. What was his name? The CDC guy. WHO spokesperson. Yeah. This guy. He said the word airborne. What was it? Was it 2020, 2021? There's a what was his name? I just lost his name. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find the exact article. Yeah, so this is the WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. That's what it is. Attends a news conference. When he was asked, right, about how is it spread, the WHO a letter to the agency outlined evidence the virus can spread in tiny airborne particles, right? But over the last several years, there were he actually said at a conference, COVID-19, the COVID virus is airborne. Somebody whispered into his ear, right? And then he corrected himself and he said, "Oh, when I said airborne, I mean that if people get on planes and fly around the world, traveling through the air while airborne, and they land in another city, and then they cough and sneeze droplets, or somebody touches their face. That's what I mean by airborne. I don't mean that the virus is actually in the air. I don't mean that the COVID virus is in the air. The WHO, this guy specifically, he's a spokesperson for the WHO. They've been lying about this for years before they finally acknowledged it, resulting in what? Catastrophic mass illness. They also said children aren't impacted by COVID. You remember this one, right? Children are impacted. So guess how many children have long COVID now, right? I just bookmarked that so I can tell you right now. Up to 5.8 million. I mean, that's a low estimate probably. Some people say it's 50 to 70% of the population have it, but they're just in denial of it, right? 75% of people, and that's actually accurate, because 75% of people, even if they test positive, will lie up for the COVID. 75% of people who get a positive PCR or rapid antigen test will say that they don't have it. Okay, so, and similarly, people who you could have long COVID, right? And but you might not either recognize it because you're just in denial that you still think that COVID is a little cold, or it's mild, it's not that bad, like the government is saying, right? Like all your medical experts are saying, in complete denial, the hospitals, and right. So the people that actually have some kind of long-term COVID, it's highly probable, even possible, and maybe probable, that it's the vast majority of people, right? Maybe not as extreme as people who can't even move out, they can't leave their bed, right? Or not as extreme as people who are like basically catatonic because their brains don't function anymore, or are in excruciating pain because their body feels like it's on fire because there's so much nerve and brain and organ damage. But some kind of permanent brain damage resulting in inability, memory loss, inability to think clearly, getting more tired frequently, having to take off a lot more time than they used to, inability to recover, random pains, just all these like random gastrointestinal problems, breathing problems. These are all parts of the lung disease, right? And so there's so many people that are in denial of that. And part of the reason that they're still in denial, right, of their ongoing ailments, right, from the 2020 human virus is because the governments, which is the business millionaire community, who have no morals whatsoever, when it comes to the rest of the society that they have been taking the revenue from and not giving back. They have been telling you're fine, and everyone else is like, yeah, we're all fine, right? Yeah, we're all fine. And if you say I'm not fine, right, then something's wrong with you. In fact, they're pathologizing people who are COVID conscious, right? So, but lying about your own condition, being willfully or not willfully ignorant about your own sickness doesn't make that go away, right? And so but I'm saying that to point out I'm saying that to point out that like entities like this WHO that is again majority funded by billionaires and the United States and Western, which is to say billionaires and the corrupt capitalist class, they have and continue to spread lies and disinformation for the benefit of their funders. And so when it comes to, let me get back to my point. So when it comes to how they are saying, because this is Financial Express, but this is not just this is the WHO information as well. This is like it's very much across the board, basically the same information that the corporate media puts out. They're saying it's direct contact with the birds or droppings, and it's possible, right? Like, yeah, if you touch the bird and then you touch your face, right? It's basically they're saying the same thing almost when you look at this information. According to the Dr. Saxena, transmission from human to human is rare, but possible. Virus can spread through contact with contaminated surfaces or objects. So they're saying the same thing. If you touch, if somebody has bird flu and they sneeze and then they touch your handle, and then someone else touches the handle and then they touch their face. Remember 2020? This was the advice. It was all false, right? The flu, measles, cold, SARS. These were all airborne. Right? The paradox now is it's the COVID has been so badly managed, right? So catastrophically, maliciously forced into people's bodies for the profit of billionaires, right? That even now, right? The United States and the West, they're now saying that we need to clean the air, right? There's several articles that are saying we need to bring about indoor air quality revolution. Like in the last month, there's been several articles. Yeah, how to clean an air purifier. Why doctors need to advocate for clean air, right? Because the reason why they're doing this is because the COVID is getting so catastrophically damaging. So many people are getting sick and dying and becoming so disabled they can't even work, right? It's collapsing schools, it's collapsing businesses, and they can't get people to replace the capitalist class. They can't get people to replace the missing people. So now they're even so now the capitalists that run the Western world are saying, okay, well maybe we should clean some of our buildings because otherwise we won't have anybody to work and make any money at all, right? Some of them, some of the capitalist classes, they're not unanimous, right? But right, why would you need to clean the air, right? Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, this one isn't even about that. This doesn't even mention illness. Okay, that's that. So this is actually not one of them. How it's filtering indoor air. I know there have been some. I'm trying to find the article where it's actually talking about. Okay, I'm not gonna be able. Maybe I won't be able to find it. Yeah. Well, here's the one. It's preventing spread of the COVID by circulating air in schools and other buildings. Edmonton Journal. It's time to clean the germs out of our indoor air. Okay, well that's the 2020. That's not recent. Well you have some lies here. No compelling evidence that air purifiers prevent respiratory illness. I don't know. Did you all go back? Did you all go back on that? I swear I saw at least a few articles of people saying maybe we need to clean the air. There is, the thing is the rich, whatever they're telling you, they all know that many of these viruses are airborne, and there's wildfire ash, there's pollution of all kinds right in the air. They all know that breathing other people's air that has not been filtered is not safe. They know that. That's why the rich will spend vast quantities of money. Okay, these are, they're putting ultraviolet light, filtered air, outside air, 99.9% filtered of pathogens. It's circulated every hour. They're getting brand new fresh air. That's in New York City. The wealthy spend tens of thousands of dollars a month just to have every hour. Every single apartment has an independent air filter. There's no central air, and the air that comes in is like air from the middle of a forest, right? That's how clean it is. It doesn't even smell like New York at all, right? And the rich are paying for that because they know how catastrophically bad COVID and other illnesses are, and how destructive that is going to be for your body, for your children, and for everyone around you. Again, this is how I know I've talked about this before, so I'll just leave it at that because I have many other videos relating to this. But I'm just trying to kind of bring that to the forefront while I talk about the next thing. And I bring this because, just to say that they lied, they are lying, and they continue to lie. They said it was, COVID doesn't impact kids. Remember in 2020? Again, and that was early on, right? Right. I mean, later on, they're like, okay, maybe some kids are sick, but they're sick with RSV. Oh, it's immunity debt. Remember, it's immunity debt. It's because they haven't gotten too many colds, so that's why they're sick, not because they've been infected with the immune system destroying dementia, Alzheimer's, catastrophic heart damaging brand new virus that may or may not have been created in a U.S. biolab with a furin cleavage site that was a mutation that was intentionally created in early 2000s. And it's not like this is a novel virus. I'm not saying that that's what the case is, but there are questions still. But it's not that the kids contracted this novel COVID virus. It's just that they haven't gotten enough colds, right? It's the lockdowns were so hard and so bad, right? Like maybe a couple of months of actual lockdowns that were not even fully locked down. Right? Everything is blamed on that, right? But it's actually, anything but, because obviously if they say, well, the governments and the businesses and the leaders and the millionaires and billionaires killed 30 million of you, and we're all criminally liable for all of our mass lying and mass disinformation. I mean, obviously, just imagine you run the New York Times. Imagine you run governments, news organizations, or corporations, right? I mean, it doesn't make it right, but they're not going to say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, we killed you all and destroyed all your children, and your kids will never have a full life, and they'll be stuck, unable to walk and leave a wheelchair for more than 5 minutes a day for the rest of their life, all multi-millions of them, because we lied to you for money, right? Because then it would be kind of like Western business and political leaders and health experts don't care about children. It'd be kind of like that, right? Like they claim to. It'd be almost like the West is an uncivilized place with no morals. Anyways, so I'm not saying that it is. It would be like that if that was the case, that you just killed and disabled, millions, if not the majority of people for money, for a handful of rich people already, right? So let's move on though. So avoiding contact with birds, frequent hand washing and soap and water, especially after handling birds or visiting poultry markets, thoroughly cooking poultry to kill the virus, using personal protective equipment when handling sick or dead birds, and avoiding traveling to outbreak areas can help to prevent the spread of bird flu. So just some tips. I mean, most people aren't touching birds constantly. I saw somebody say, "Oh my gosh, if COVID-19 caused by birds are outside. If you ever go outside, you're gonna get bird flu." I mean, obviously, because somebody's saying because if the H5n1 is airborne and birds are outside, when the birds breathe in the air, if you're out in nature, like if you walk through the park or go hiking in the mountains, you're immediately gonna get bird flu because I see birds outside. Like, number one, not every bird has bird flu. Number two, vast quantities of humans have all kinds of viruses, and you're around humans, and humans are outside too. They're inside and outside, right? And you're breathing around the humans, right? But the vast majority of humans are not contracting colds, RSV, COVID, and all the other viruses just being outside, right? Otherwise, anytime you leave your house, anytime you go to a park, everyone instantly get all the sicknesses. Also, H5n1 has been in the air in birds. It's been in birds for decades already, right? So that's just that. So that's not the case, based upon information that's fairly easy to observe. However, the idea that the only way you can get the bird flu is, what is being suggested here is that it's the touching the birds, right? Obviously washing your hands is not a bad thing to do, right? And after handling birds, visiting poultry markets, thoroughly cooking poultry kills the virus. I mean, that's a good suggestion because heating above 165 degrees kills most viruses and bacteria. Using personal protective equipment when handling sick or dead birds, and avoiding traveling to outbreak areas. Antiviral medications may be prescribed to reduce the rate of symptoms. Okay, but there's a lot of implication here. And before I kind of went off in a direction I didn't mean to. But on the science.org, and this person that is speaking here, this person they're asking is Gregory Gray, an epidemiologist, right, at the University of Texas medical branch. Okay, now here you see we're standing by the ready to assist in the way that would help us identify a transmission pathway. Is a viable virus aerosolized? Is it coming out in the feces? Or is it simply a respiratory pathogen that is moving through direct contact from cattle to cattle? Right? We're talking about the bird flu that's in the cattle. I would think there's some indication. There is some indication with this rapid multi-state spread that this thing is airborne. Okay, so now this is one epidemiologist. Okay, this is one professional scientist who is talking to science.org at this time, right? And a lot of times, if you want the truth, if you talk to a scientist, like just as one example, right? Florida, you remember this? I don't know if you remember this, right? The Florida in 2022, right? This is when Florida and DeSantis were very upset about lockdowns, and they wanted to, the U.S. government and which is the big business, and Florida, right, and DeSantis in particular, wanted to show that their their COVID numbers were very low, despite them not being, so that they could justify opening businesses up and ending the lockdown. It's not really a full lockdown, or just ending the precautions and the requirements for outdoor dining, right? And prohibiting certain indoor activities, right? That would be dangerous. In the 2020 human virus outbreak, right? Remember this? So one way that you can, this is not a guarantee, but one way that you can get information that is not tainted with falsehoods, right, and corrupted by the dollars that are handed out to those who do what the people who have all the dollars want, right? Who are not the nicest of people, is when you look at the people who were trying to, do the science, because scientists, right, researchers, technicians, right, engineers, right, and this person that was fired, Rebecca Jones, she was a programmer. She was a IT programmer. She just wanted to have a system that could easily maintain and correctly and accurately maintain. And because, I'm a computer scientist myself. I'm a programmer, engineer, I'm a game maker. I want to do a good job and make sure that my game engine or my code, my software does what it's supposed to do, right? You take pride in your work, right? And scientists, like, they, like a lot of people who like do scientists for the love of the truth seeking and the knowledge seeking, they don't have a particular interest in, at least when they're doing science, and I don't have a particular interest of saying a particular outcome, right? It's like, I want to find out what is the truth about this thing. And so the Florida Health Department data manager was charged with illegally accessing secret after public accused official wanting to make COVID-19 statistics look less dire. So she basically she had designed the system, right, to track the amount and number of people with the SARS-CoV-ID virus. The government said, we don't like the way that you are. We don't like that you're showing that we have a lot of people with it. So what the government of Florida asked her to basically reprogram the system to show that their numbers are dropping. This is like confirmed. Okay. So, and it's at the same time the U.S. is saying, oh, this other big country that the U.S. is trying to compete with. Oh, you can't trust their numbers. The U.S. literally was openly caught saying, hey, scientists and technicians, statisticians, people keeping track of who and where has the virus, fake the numbers. They just told her, fake the numbers. And she said no. And then she tried to, she said, no, I'm not going to let you just rig the numbers when it's not actually safe. And then they fired her and they gave her a lawsuit. Basically, like, she was accessing the system she was already programming. And they said, you are committing a felony of accessing state systems that you don't have access to, right? And then it became this was like a later article. There was an earlier article, right, about when this first happened. Yeah. But Florida's not the only one that did that, by the way. Okay, but anyways, so coming back to this, and the reason why I bring that up is that it's just another example of where the actual reality of the virus situation is being intentionally hid, right? And I would think that there's some indication. So this this person is, the cattle industry probably doesn't want anybody mentioning that. Is what I'm trying to say, right? In the same way that the U.S. government and states like Florida didn't want anybody mentioning, hey, guess what? Actually, our numbers are going up. And in fact, they fired people, they attacked people, and they intentionally lied, and they intentionally had people reprogram their systems to make it seem like their COVID numbers were dropping, right? So this is just some random individual scientists from some university saying this, but I will. Here is a prediction I will make. In the near future, there is likely to be an attempt to claim that H5N1 is not airborne, or to de-emphasize the airborne nature of it, and to constantly talk about hand washing, droplets. There's gonna be the droplet thing, and H5N1 is not spread from cows. H5N1 is not spread by the cows breathing. Is not spread by the birds breathing. The avian flu is spread with droplets and physical material. And why would they do that, right? For the same reason that the capitalist world said COVID-19 or COVID is not airborne, it's droplets, it's wash your hands more, right? Because wash your hands more doesn't interfere with capitalist business, right? In fact, you can sell more hand sanitizer. And in fact, Amazon, sold boxes of that for like, $1,000 each, right? When they were price gouging. But if a virus or a pathogen is known or suspected or believed to be airborne, that can drastically impact the profit of the people who run Western societies, right? So that's why you're gonna see. I think we're gonna see a massive attempt to. Also very important, CDC, WHO, and government officials will claim, they are claiming now, we always told you that we never said that COVID wasn't dangerous. That's all in the fine print, right? Like if you go to like the very, very hidden back page of the CDC, if you go to even concert ticket sellers, insurance companies, when you go to see Taylor Swift, in the very, 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 very fine print, way on the backside of the tickets website that you can go to, log in, and then somewhere it says, by the way, if you catch COVID, it could cause catastrophic illness, death. It's not mild. It's actually very severe, and it's airborne. And so if you go to this concert, you have a very high chance. If you follow what the CDC is saying, if you follow what the WHO is saying, in the very, very, very fine print, in fact, you could get sick and die. But obviously, like that's, that violates all kinds of rules. Like there's a reason why they made new rules where, when you sign the end user license agreement of certain software, you have to put in the very front the most important details, right? You can't bury behind 10,000 pages, right? The actual negative impacts. Health commercials, right? Like take, Exactin, it'll slightly clear up your pimples. Side effects include nausea, vomiting, brain damage, dementia, Alzheimer's, catastrophic heart attack, death. Ask your doctor if Exactin is right for you, right? The reason why health commercials have to have all this list of absolutely horrific things that nobody ever wants to get is because health pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, big hospital, big universal death care, basically, have been hiding. They historically were hiding adverse effects as far away from customers' eyes as possible, and the public's eye as possible, right? And so similarly, but there's no rules for viruses. There's no rules for the CDC or WHO like that, or the governments, right? So what they're doing is they're telling you, they're blasting in your face in the brightest font, in the most visible way, the lies, right? They're saying the lies in a way that is most legally it is best in a long game contingency for them, so they have an alibi out, right? They're blasting the lie. Oh, it's fine. Everyone's fine. Just go out and do whatever you want. But in the fine print, they're going, oh, but by the way, we told you that you're all going to get sick and die. So when 30 million of you die and everyone's disabled and you're catastrophically ill and your children are all sick and they have no future, well, we told you so, but you didn't though. You didn't though. I mean, in a Western corrupt court, maybe that would hold up, but but that's basically what it is. Because And all of that does is the fact that they put in the fine print. Oh, by the way, you could get sick and die. In fact, you have a very high chance of getting sick and die. And COVID is not mild at all. It's airborne Alzheimer's, AIDS, and heart attack in an airborne package that you're getting 6 times. You're getting 3 times a year. I'm not saying everyone's getting it 3 times, but some people are getting it. You can get COVID 3, 5, 6 times potentially in 1 year. You can actually have 2 strains in your body at the same time. That's actually one way that like hyperpathogenic, far more virulent new variants are created, is when you get if you get like a Parola and a sub-Omicron variant in your body and you're immunocompromised and your immune system is severely disabled. That's how the new variants tend to get made. So every time and also COVID damages and inhibits your immune system like HIV, right? So very unfortunately, the probability that we're going to have far worse and far more COVID variants in the coming years, it goes up. It's not, you don't get stronger, right? This is another lie. When you get sick, you're exercising your immune system is getting stronger. Absolute catastrophic lie, especially with COVID. I'm sorry, COVID, right? The more you get, when you get COVID, your immune system gets weakened, making you a new petri dish, right? You are a new engine to generate new variants, right? So this is why we're having more and more and more. There's so many variants. They're running out of Greek. They've already run out of Greek letters, and they're running out of. They have to have like many sub numbers to catalog all the variants, because, in the beginning, people who had like HIV, AIDS, people who had just hereditary immune system defects and problems that just mean that they didn't produce many T cells and B cells, etc. Those were the initial incubators, right? Now, because 99% of the Earth has had COVID, virtually everyone is an incubator, more or less, because everyone's immune system is compromised by the airborne AIDS they got. It's called COVID. Everyone is basically an incubator for super strains. So, and that's another thing. So when they said, the COVID, it went from a 20% death rate to 0.1%. The way that COVID deaths is measured has evolved, right? That's what's happened. Because just another example is, HIV ostensibly has 100% death rate, right? But it's kind of like, well, but you can live to be 70, 80 years old, right? With HIV, right? And also like HIV itself doesn't kill you, right? When you get HIV, I'm going to go on a slight side note here, right? When you get the human immunodeficiency virus, it's a virus that attacks the body's immune system. If it's not treated, it can lead to AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. There's no cure, but there's treatments, right? With proper medical care, it can be controlled, right? HIV, where is it? So HIV. So one of the highest rates of death of people who have HIV, right, is with pneumonia. So, pneumocystis pneumonia remains a leading cause of death in HIV-related patients, HIV-infected patients. So when you get the HIV, it's not actually the HIV doesn't kill you. It's a cold or a pneumonia or a strep throat or some other bacteria or virus that comes in and kills you, right? The HIV isn't itself what kills you. It just disables your defenses, right? Your immune system is your defense. It's not. It takes away the weapons that your army has to stop invading armies, right? That's what HIV is ultimately doing, right? This is also why COVID is worse, because COVID does things like an actual HIV specialist have looked at COVID patients and they said this is like in terms of the immune system, what SARS does is basically identical or very near identical. I'm seeing exactly the same things in trying to figure out how to treat people with SARS, I'm seeing basically the same problems as I saw in HIV, right? But HIV is not airborne. It's one virus that isn't, right? It's not that easy to spread, right? It's like contact bodily fluids, and it's not easily spread. COVID is airborne, right? Like HIV, it goes into the brain. It passes through the blood-brain barrier, which is very bad, which causes, the fusing of the neurons. It causes microthrombosis, and it ruptures the blood vessels in the brain. It causes strokes with the microclotting. And then, but so long story short, I alluded to COVID is worse than HIV. It absolutely is, right? It's contagious. Our contagion rate is near where measles is. It's like hyper contagious, especially the latest strains of it. Just as one difference between HIV and COVID, the HIV that causes the AIDS is not actually what kills you. With COVID, it can absolutely be what kills you, right? In fact, many people who die from COVID, right? They're not even counted because they had a stroke or a heart attack, right? Caused by the microclotting, right? The mass microclotting. That's not something that was observed. Your blood cells clump together and they make these little hard rocks that are like little pebbles swimming through your bloodstream, and that's why you suddenly had an explosion in extreme heart events, massive heart attacks, strokes, etc. Right? And so that is not like the COVID didn't disable your immune system and then pneumonia killed you, right? That's just COVID. It's not like some people just die because the COVID eats your lungs and then you died from that, or it just like is caused you it caused organ failures, right? But it could also just the blood vessel and the blood problems, right, can lead to all these other catastrophic events that kill you. Those are not chalked up. Those are generally not counted as COVID deaths. Unless a doctor sees that you're testing positive for COVID and you're like on a respirator, they're not counting the strokes and they're not counting the heart attacks. So that's another thing where this idea that COVID has a 0.1% death rate, that is false. And not just because most people are not even testing, right? Most people are not even testing, and if they're testing, they're lying. 3/4 of people statistically are lying. So how would you even know if it was 0.1%? This is like the UK, the US, the West for sure are absolutely completely fraudulent, being absolute liars about who is dying from the 2020 human virus. Absolutely. Okay. Anyways, but I'm on my soapbox on that one. Let's move forward. Okay. So HIV damages the immune system. Doesn't cause death. Okay. Now, if you look at what is the HIV death rate, right? What is the case fatality rate of HIV? Okay, so case fatality rates of 1, 5, and 10 years were 15, 25, and 34%. Cumulative case fatality rates of 1, 5, and 10 were 6, 14, and 23 in the cases with access to antiretroviral therapy, and 68, 90, and 98 in a case without access to. So if you have the medicine, then you have 34%. So a lot of people will live a long time with HIV if you have access to the medicine, right? If you don't have access to the medicine, at the 10-year mark, you have a near 100% chance of being dead, right? Now, that the thing is, when the way they're counting, this is like, if you get HIV, how long do you live, right? This is not the 98% is not that 98% of people that get that people are not being killed by the HIV, that or they're this is the interesting thing, right? It's kind of like the way that they're counting. This is why some people say, well, HIV is worse, but there has not been 5 and 10 years, right? There has been 4 years. It's 2024, right? It's 2024. The human 2020 virus, right? The COVID came out in 2020. There hasn't even been 5 years yet, right? We don't know how, like, you could discover 50 or 98% of people start dying 10 years from now. We haven't reached that 10-year mark, right? So you can't really compare that. And also, lots of people are people are not being treated for COVID, right? But what we're seeing is that the 98, so that 98%, right? And if we take what the doctor said, right? I forget what there's a doctor, the HIV doctors that were looking at COVID, and they're saying this is basically like the same as what I was dealing with HIV in the last 40 years, except worse. Then it's entirely possible that you, by the 10-year mark, you're gonna start seeing huge numbers of people dropping dead who had COVID. I'm sorry, COVID, right? Because that's something that, but you're not gonna be able to see that for some time, right? What you're gonna see now, right? Like what you see with people who have HIV is they get a lot more colds, they get a lot more sicknesses, they're sick all the time, right? Because their immune system is falling apart, right? But when you get HIV, your immune system isn't gone instantly, right? It slowly falls apart. The HIV virus slowly eats away at your white blood cells and your immune system, your lymphomatic system, and all your body's it whittles away at the defenses over time. And we know that COVID infects T cells. It infects the immune cells, right? And so that what you would expect to see is people, right, getting a lot sicker, getting sicker and getting sicker, getting more frequently sick, right? Colds, stomach bugs, sore throats, right? That's what happens, right? That's what happens with HIV. What are we seeing right now, right? 4 years in, what are we seeing right now, right? What we're seeing is lots of everyone having 4, 5, 6 times as many colds, sick all the time, right? So the pattern for the mass death from HIV, now HIV was limited to a tiny % of the population in the U.S., right? You can watch Dallas Buyers Club. It's about that, right? And there's lots of Rent. I mean, there's lots of media that talks about the HIV crisis. Now, obviously, it disproportionately impacted the queer community, and that's horrible. And then queer phobia, that was a huge, anti-gayness was a huge problem that was exacerbated. COVID is hitting everybody, okay? And so seeing everyone constantly getting sick with colds, RSV, and the flus, and etc., that is following the HIV pattern, actually. And the end stage of that is in 10 years, right? You're going to see more and more people dropping dead. Now, if you get treatment for HIV, it decreases your 10-year fatality rate to 34%. Okay? But just think about this. If 99% of the US and 99% of people generally got COVID, and you take that number and you give 99% of people a 34% survivability rate, I mean, this is just the back of the envelope calculation. I am not saying that 90 million Americans will die by 2030. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, like, if it follows the HIV pattern, and also that's for people who get a proper antiretroviral treatment, by the way. I'm not saying that 90 million people will die by 2030 if they get treatment, and that I'm not saying that 98% of the US will be dead from COVID. I'm not saying that 320 million Americans will die by 2030. But I'm just saying that like, there's a pattern there, and that people are getting sicker. Um, and it to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if you start seeing way more people dropping dead. Um, Current excess deaths 2024. The U.S. is hiding the number, by the way. It's very difficult to find this out. Excess mortality 2024. So the rate at which people are dying is going up. It's hard to really get the exact number. The U.S. is trying to mass import people, and this is causing, obviously, for conservatives, the conservatives are saying a lot of things about, we have to worry about immigration, the DEI, wokeness, and this and that, right? This is what they're always doing at all times. But that's the response to that. But the U.S. does need vast quantities of healthy people coming in because they're losing huge numbers of healthy humans. Now, if you don't die, that doesn't mean that you're taken out of the workforce either, right? You could be, in fact, if you're alive and disabled and you can't work, you can take out somebody else who could be doing other work, because that person has to be a carer for the people that are disabled. And I'm not saying that like disabled people are a burden on society and they shouldn't be around. As a disabled person myself, but what I am saying is that like COVID, which is causing mass death and then also mass disability, that is knocking out huge. That is the worker shortage right there. And this is why they're pushing to bring more and more people into the United States. For better or for worse, whatever you think about that. I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to, I'm sure lots of people will be like, are you anti-immigration or something? I'm just saying that like, one of the major reasons why they're running short on people to work, the reason why you're having states that have 8, 12, 16-year-olds working in bars and in sawmills, right, and in restaurants, is because they've run out of people. They've run out of healthy enough people. Now, disabled people can still work, but if you become catastrophically disabled from COVID or something else, right, and if you cannot walk and you cannot be active for more than half an hour or an hour a day, you cannot do most jobs, right? And the people that run places like the United States, right, like we all know, they need to solve that problem. If they want to have a business, they're gonna have to solve that. They're gonna have to deal with that. And what that means is that the U.S. is trying to mass import, and most Western countries, this is gonna be a very interesting year and in near future, because whatever the conservative anti-immigrant, woke diversity is bad, whatever crowd says, there will not be a U.S. or European or Canadian economy without vast quantities of people coming into the country, and a lot of them are not going to be the fair skin complexioned people. It's either that. Like, number one, a lot of people who are currently in the fat cat business class, upper middle class and upper class, should stop doing that and get real jobs. But like, doing some physical, actual, mechanically separating, not saying work in their own chicken or cow facilities if they're gonna do that kind of work, or do some kind of actual work, do some kind of science, engineering, math, transportation, health work, educational care work or something, right? But the reality is that there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. They want to do BS jobs, and especially the more well-to-do citizens that complain about there's too much. The people who tend to complain about the immigration rate, they tend to be the people who actually take advantage of all the immigrants, right? It's this paradox, and then they get elected into office, and then they sell to their own citizens, hey, there's too many immigrants, but then they bring in more immigrants, right? Like Ron DeSantis himself tried to have a stricter control over immigrants working in actual like working class jobs like construction, and for like 2 weeks nothing got built in Florida. And so Ron DeSantis, Mr. Right Wing himself, he had to absolutely 180 on that, because without the immigrants, literally nothing was getting done. Because guess what? The those other people, the people that are not the immigrants and not the working groups of people, they're not doing much of anything useful. They're just sitting around whining and collecting everyone else's stolen labor value as profit. So anyway, but that's a side note. It's 1 o'clock. I got to get out of here soon. So, let's come back to this. So anyway, so all of that, all of that leads back to how this ongoing h5n1 cows coming home to roost with the chickens is going to go down, right? Lots and lots of lying, lots of disinformation, a lot of catastrophic mismanagement, a lot of just like every way you can possibly imagine it's going to go wrong. And that means that like we have to prepare. I mean, as people who would like to do the best and the most correct thing based on the best, truest, realist information that we can get access to for the betterment of all people, ourselves, and our environment, etc., and the animals too, we have to prepare for the reality that it is like the ongoing many crises, not just health related crises. The h5n1 bird flu, and now dairy cows and cows infected with that, is going to be another catastrophically badly weaponized, mismanaged, lied about, benefiting profits, hurting the masses and people and general actual real economy. We know we gotta prepare for that, and so and a few other things that I didn't talk about that I was getting to, but I missed. Okay, so if they're saying that this is just another example that I wanted to talk about, that this scientist, right, a individual scientist just doing pandemic science, being asked before it's that big of a deal in science.org, which is not as bad as the Washington Post or CNN or the Texas Times, right, or Fox News, right? If you ask a scientist, they're saying we're not sure at the moment, but it is highly probable that h5n1 bird flu in the cows is airborne. Okay, so number one, you should be doing whatever precautions you need, masking, distancing in general, but also people that like I said, the people that are going into those farms, the chicken and the people work with the chickens and work with the cows. It's indoor spaces. They should be masking, right? We're not seeing that. They should be masking. Before they enter, if it's airborne, which is probable, like all the other viruses, like other influenzas, like other colds, like COVID, like measles, right? Like tuberculosis, right? It is airborne. So when you go in, I mean, also you should wash your hands, because it's airborne. Plus, you can get infected through the physical liquids and droplets too, right? Before you enter, the people should be being warned. Hey, don't enter without wearing, PPE and air filtration, like N95 or something like that, before you even enter the chicken and the cow facility full of chickens and cows, because they're breathing that stuff out in the air, right? Now, when we come to Financial Express, you see this is where the information is already doing the COVID thing, where individual scientists are discovering, oh wow, hey, this is the truth. It's airborne. And you can already see the press is warping it, right? The corporate media is warping it. So if you touch the birds or you touch droppings, that's how you get it. That's what this is suggesting in this sentence. Human case of h5n1 infections through direct close contact, right? The virus spreads through contact with contaminated surfaces or objects. So again, if your human gets it, this is 2020 again, right? This is the lies of 2020, lies of the 2020 COVID virus, right? If you have COVID, if you have the virus, you touch your face, you touch your nose, you touch a table, you touch a doorknob, right? Someone else touches the doorknob and then they touch their face, and that's how you get COVID, right? That's what remember 2020. Think about 2020, right? Let me see if I can do that. Like this, I know the search engine is breaking itself. Custom rage. Let me see if I can get 2019 to 2020. Can I get all the way back there? Yeah, droplets and contact routes. I'm trying to find. They probably. I'm gonna guess that they have cleaned out all of their lies, as much as possible. Droplets. COVID can spread from people to animals during close contact. Spread through an entire country. Spread through partial variants. Yeah. I'm trying to find the original articles that they put out about COVID. Touching a surface or object, the droplets land on the noses or the mouths of other people who then inhale them. The CD says it's possible for the virus to spread by touching a surface or object with the virus, and then the person touching their mouth or eyes. Okay, remember this? This is 2020. This is the official advice. COVID is spread person to person, spread between people who are in close with. Remember 4 to 6 feet. 4 to 6 feet. If you're 6 feet apart. The drops, in fact, when you cough or sneeze, the droplets land on your nose or your mouth, and then you inhale them. When they land on your nose and your mouth, and it's spread through touching an object when a person touches their nose or either mouth. But this is not thought to be the main method of spread. Okay, so I mean, this is just one of many advice. But the thing is, they already knew in this time. They knew the virus was airborne. They were just trying to. They were. This is like one of the smoking guns of many of them, where the CDC, the WHO they were lying to the public about how COVID was spread, killing millions of people, disabling many more, because the business community didn't want to deal with the ramifications of airborne, right? Meaning like it's in the air in the rooms you're in, right? Meaning they have to clean the air, they have to lock things down, shut things down, mandatory masking, and they didn't want to do that. It would cost money, it could slow business down, and so they lied and they said this, right? Let's just stand far away from each other. Don't get too close. Wash your hands 25 times a day. You know, I mean, washing your hands is not bad, but that's not sufficient, right? And this is just one of those. So what we're seeing when the financial when in 2024, right? Contaminated surfaces or objects. And then, well, it's not saying droplets here, but it's implying it. This article is not talking about the airborne nature of the virus, right? Which is basically almost guaranteed. Avoiding or very, very highly probable. Avoiding contact with birds, we can handle washing with soap and water, especially after handling birds. They're really cooking poultry. Let me see if I can find any other articles about this. Okay. Because what you usually see is that you're gonna see a whole lot of articles that have the same kind of terms in them, because Western media is all one handful of capitalists controlling all of it. You generally, okay, might not be able to find that at this moment. But anyways, you're gonna see more of that. You're gonna see more of these articles coming out that are saying, yes, bird flu could be a problem, but don't worry. Just wash your hands. Watch out for the droplets, right? if you touch a chicken, you can get the bird flu. But this is you know gonna largely if there is human to human H5n1 spread, you're gonna see a high probability. I'm gonna give you a high probability that the corporate media and the government will tell you just H5n1 is human to human now, is dangerous, but wash your hands, stay 4 to 6 feet apart, because they're pretending like they're already pretending like the COVID is gone, right? Hey, we're not masking because there's no airborne anything. We're all fine now. Everyone's fine. Hunky dory time. It's all great, right? Biden did an amazing job. Never mind all the problems in the world. So that's another thing. So be ready for that. No, for us at the Silver Spoon Cooperative, we Holly and I and and our kids, we have never stopped masking and distancing since 2020. We have not done a single public event that was unmasked, and we just went for a tax related thing this week, and thankfully where we're at, we didn't get the place that we went, we didn't get judged or looked at all. We didn't have like all kind of negative run-ins because we were wearing masks, and there are other people that weren't wearing masks in the place we were in. It was a public space. And even the person that we were directly dealing with wasn't masked, but we didn't have but that has to do with the place that we're in. However, we understand that many places are going to stigmatize you. You could be bullied at work. You could be pushed into quitting. You could be attacked physically, verbally, in your job. Especially if you're a frontline worker in a Starbucks or a restaurant, in your friends group, people will attack you and insult you and say that you're delusional or mentally unwell because you're masking and COVID conscious and taking that seriously, that is a 90%, approximately 90% of people are currently living in an alternate denialist 2019 fiction, despite being in 2024. That is an unfortunate reality, and it's very difficult for people to deal with that. Many people are just basically bullied. They are peer pressured, obviously, into living in that dangerous fiction in 2024, and it impacts people's social lives, it impacts people's business, economic reality situation, their job, their friend networks, their ability to talk, their ability to have human connections with people. And some people are making the choices they're making. Let's put it that way. It doesn't make their choice correct in terms of pandemic, in terms of mass human virus spread and danger, but those are the choices people are making. So we also have to be ready for that. We try to encourage as many people as possible to take these things as serious as they possibly can take these things, right? And part of that's why we have on our social media, we have a lot of pictures of ourselves. Every time we're out, we're always masked. In fact, I just put up another. I'm trying to put together I'm thinking about doing a panel on this and possibly the Twitch channel of disabled folks and people dealing with long-term illness, and obviously, in particular, directly relating to things like the COVID and long COVID, and if possible. And I was asking if people are interested to let me know. And obviously, this is when we're out. We were out in this, and obviously, I do look different in different times of the day for a topic that we can talk in another video about. But also, we were masked. And that's to encourage people to do the right thing, despite 99 out of 10 people doing the wrong thing. Right? That's unfortunate. Until they get maybe until they get catastrophically. See, it's important for people who are able-bodied, slightly or just not too significantly disabled, right? To be doing this, not waiting until you are like, oh my gosh, I can't even move. Now I'm gonna care. But some people get catastrophically disabled and they're still not taking it seriously. It's very sad to see that happen. But I mean, some people only they're like, well, I'm gonna party and I'm gonna go do what I want to do unmasked and not protect everybody and not protect the community and all people's health. Um, um, and then if I get eventually catastrophically ill, I hope everybody else picks up for me. And that's just like a really that says that you didn't really actually care all that much the entire time. Whatever you put in your bio, and that's unfortunate. But that's why we have to, like, as people that are not, we are disabled, Holly and I both, but we're not at that level, so we have to continue to be symbols of encouragement of doing what is the right thing. When it comes to what do we do with this H5N1, right? There's also been a spike in measles. It's up 113 cases. There's so many pandemics, it's hard to keep even track of how much virus and illness is going around. 113 cases. It's 95% with 2 full doses. In those without 2 full doses of MMR. 83%. But there are a large number of breakthrough cases, and the numbers are double in Q1 of 2024, double all of 2023. For measles, here's another thing is in early 2020 we already knew. Just one more piece of evidence. There was a choir practice in, I believe, Oregon in 2020 where people who were distanced, they washed their hands, and they were singing, right? They were spread out. It was like 60 to 80 people. I forget. There was many people. 75% of everybody at choir practice, totally distanced, 4 to 6 feet, hand washing. 75% of people got COVID from one person, from the alpha strain, not the Omicron, which was even more contagious. The alpha, the original strain. 75% of a room over 2 hours. So it's been known. And also, this is 14 men on a ski trip. All were ill. Of the 14, 4 needed to be hospitalized. Okay, so this is like everyone got sick from this on a ski trip. It was known to be airborne the whole time. Okay, so if anyone tells you, oh well, the H5N1, just wash your hands and 4 to 6 feet. Do not accept that without some kind of proven science that's not coming from a corporate or government, which is to say a corporate a source, because you have to get, it's very difficult to figure out what is even true. That's like a whole job now. It's kind of like moderating during the age of generative AI. It's almost impossible, very difficult. So that means the trust networks of individuals that have proven themselves to have given over time trustworthy information is more critical than ever. It's a mutual aid network of actual high quality information is basically what it is. That it cannot be built through, oh well, we'll just listen to the experts. You can't do that. It's not it was never really possible. It absolutely is not in 2024 and in the last 4 years. That's not a thing. I was trying to find, there's one more thing I wanted to say that was related to this. I bookmarked it. It was in my bookmarks. Yeah. So cats are catching H5N1. 100% of cats that have gotten the avian flu have died. Okay. So what have people been doing with their animals? And I actually postulated this. I said, because we know COVID, like HIV, destroys and disables immune systems, and most humans have been completely ignoring, including vegans, by the way, who ostensibly care about animals, have been completely ignoring the ongoing COVID, spreading it to their cats and dogs, right? And birds and pet hamsters and bunnies, right? Because humans have been spreading this immune system destroying COVID to their cats and other animals, right? It actually makes total sense why we're seeing a lot of animals suddenly getting sick with H5N1, despite it having been around for a long time, right? And one reason why, one contributing factor is humans have mass sickened and mass infected their pets, like cats, with COVID. You have prepared your cat to be a petri dish. You have weakened your cat's white blood cells to be a petri dish for H5n1. You are giving your cat bird flu. You're giving your dog 100% mortality rate avian flu. It's actually your fault, right? And I mean, I'm not saying it's you personally. I'm saying the people who are ignoring this thing. And like, why are our cats getting sick? Why are our dogs getting sick? Well, I mean, that's a major reason. It's because you've given them airborne AIDS. You know? If you claim to care about animals and ecology and the environment, and then but you're not masking, you're not distancing and pushing and for clean air and seriously taking seriously these ongoing pandemics, including COVID, you don't actually care. You don't actually care about your cat. Oh, this is what I wanted to get to. So Ed Yong is one of the COVID experts. Used to write on health in the Atlantic. Thank goodness you've gotten out of that nasty rag. But Ed Yong here is on video presenting on long COVID to a large group. I'm sorry. Yeah, where is his let's see, Ed Yong. Let's see if I can get that one. Oop. Let's see. Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's another one. There's only this one. I saw another picture of this, but so he gave the presentation, and it was all masked, and there's a large group of people there, also all masked. So it is possible, right, to do events. I mean, this is showing that it's possible to do these events. Yeah, he won a Pulitzer in 2021 for his excellent reporting on COVID pandemic. He has interviewed many scientists and researchers and LC patients over the years. Okay, I'm not able to find. There's another image where you can see everyone around. Okay. Anyways, but long story short, like we need more people that are higher profile that are doing that. The other one was Meghan Markle was also with where is that one? Meghan Markle was with children. Yeah, at the Children's Hospital in LA, wearing her mask, because that's what you should be doing at all times when you're in public spaces, in shared air, in ongoing horrific, catastrophically bad COVID spread, and also especially when you're seeing sick children, right? Unlike doctors, nurses, medical experts, family members, and the general public who have been coming into the children's cancer and extremely sick children's spaces, immunocompromised children's spaces, and basically killing the children off, and there, someday there should be an investigation into, I want to call it mass COVID spread complicity disorder. It's not really about. There's a lot of talk about people who have masking have a paranoia, masking mental health disorder, but the real disorder is people's, self delusion or knowing complicity and knowing guilt, right, of doing what benefited them in the last 4 years, right? Betraying their family members, betraying their community, betraying their sick and immunocompromised and disabled friends and family members, right? There should be investigation into that. That's the real disorder, is what happens to people who used to view themselves as like good, upstanding members of their community, and then now, but they've made a choice to, do very dangerous and mass and sickening things that people who are still trying to do the right thing, like ourselves, call them out on. And when they see a mask, it causes this reaction. You can almost like see it in the face of people, right? When certain people see the mask, they have this guilt and then a fear and then like an anger, lashing out, gaslighting reaction. They're like, what are you even wearing that for? We're not in the PANDEMIC anymore. That is a mental health problem, right? It's not a mental health problem. In some people it can be extreme like problem, but it's definitely it is a collective guilt, fear, culpability, discomfort, and then it distorts your self-image of yourself, right? Because if somebody else is taking a thing, if somebody else is wearing a mask, it's saying that, hey, you're not saying that. Yeah, you're saying that, but it's automatically implied, hey, you're not wearing it, right? And so there's a lot of things that happen in the mind of people, especially in the minds of people who are surrounded by people living in a 2019 delusional fictional world where there is no COVID, right? If most of your day is spent around people that are spreading, this horrible thing again and again and again, in order to live, not discomforted in a nice, cushy, little comfortable bubble of nonsense, right? To have your club or your bar or your concert or whatever you're doing, right? Or have a job or this concert. I mean, the job one, it doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's like, well, I need to make money to pay my rent, and if only job I can get is working at McDonald's, and I'm gonna get fired if I wear a mask, I might get fired at McDonald's. So, I don't know what else to do. So I'm not. There's a lot more. It's just people, well, I need to go to this expensive restaurant or this restaurant. I need to go to the restaurant or the club unmasked or the bar. I need to go to this, indoor massive event that's really expensive. I need to go to Taylor Swift. I need to go to this $600 concert. So I'm not going to wear my mask because like, I just need to. That's an extra layer. Now, sometimes it's like, I'm not gonna wear a mask because my family members like to see me in person and they're COVID denialists. So, or some people go, well, I'll go to the grocery store wearing a mask and then I'll like go to lots of parties and things unmasked. And then they say, well, you can't guilt me for that. You have to be nice to me on that because at least I went to the grocery store. And I mean, like, it kind of, it's like, what do you want people to say? Especially if you're ostensibly somebody who is a health educator, COVID conscious public figure trying to help people, and then there's somebody I'm thinking about specifically, right? Maybe like if you really need to go to a bar or a restaurant or a club or a rock concert or a pop concert, karaoke night, or an unmasked movie theater screening, or a Taylor Swift or a Beyonce concert unmasked, because everyone else isn't, you don't want to make it weird because you give in to peer pressure rather than do the right thing. I mean, you if you do that, don't like take a picture of yourself with no mask on at the bar, at the club, at the concert, and then put it up on your COVID conscious profile. Maybe don't do that, But long story short, like these are all parts of the things that we, and so like when H5n1 hits, I hope that more people than just, you know, the least popular future queen of Britain, the least popular possible future queen of Britain isn't the only one wearing N95s and KN95s. You know what I'm saying? I hope, and taking public health seriously for reals. You know, there's Robert Pattinson, right? We have Robert Pattinson. Let me see if I can get him. If Robert Pattinson, not in a Batman mask. Yeah, Robert Pattinson regularly wearing his hospital mask. Sometimes he's Batman. Okay, but the Batman doesn't count because Batman has the opposite of what is good. He has parts of his upper face covered, nothing covering his mouth, and I think his nose is not sealed. So that not the Batman mask. Okay, that doesn't count. I'm talking about the Robert Pattinson is wearing Ben Affleck and his Ben Affleck's daughter, you know, constantly in a mask. Like, let's see, in all her recent pictures, she's been masked, right? Ben and J-Lo, right? Ben and J-Lo, big celebrities, every time they are not masked. So they're making choices, right? But you see, like, living in the reality of 2024 and doing community care, it requires a level of it requires you to not sacrifice because that makes it seem like it's so hard. It requires you to take the slight inconvenience of wearing the necessary medical devices and taking absolutely necessary precautions in the reality, right? That can get in the way of your normal pre-pandemic 2019 life, where you can just fly your face around wherever you want and not trouble the 90% of the population, right, that want to live with their nose and face out all day long. You know, because socially it's mostly the social thing, really, right? And I think that's shown by the people who do a lot of, I don't know exactly, but there are many people who do mask to go to the grocery store or to do some trips, right? But then when it comes to their social events they really care about, right? Then they're all back to no, my nose and face being out is more important than public health, right? Because that's like the people I want to impress, the people that I want to date, the people that I want to be friends with. They might be weirded out by that, or they're gonna feel bad. They're gonna feel complicity in the last 4 years of mass death and disability that they're trying to ignore. And I want to empower people's feeling. I want to empower people's ignorance and trying to run away from their own death, and I want to empower people's denial of their own complicity in mass death and suffering, and have fun with them, right? Because I need that more than public health. That's really what it ultimately comes down to. I want to live in my 2019 world and have my career, be rich and famous and seen. I need to be seen, right? Because the thing is, you don't stop existing when you wear a mask. You're still there. You're just slightly less seen the way that you used to be seen. And I need the social validation tokens. I need the something, right? I need the people clapping for me and looking at me and thinking I'm hot, right? I mean, that's not to say you can't be hot with a mask on. I think I proved that false. But I need to be seen as who I am with my face all out there, more than I care about collective health, the community, death, and stopping death and sickness, and ultimately stopping the end of all civilization if you go in the direction far enough. And also benefiting what the horrific billionaire plutocracy wants. And so these are choices that everyone's making. I mean, whether they say it or not, the average anti-mask person is just going to kind of say, well, I haven't even thought about it. That's false. They're thinking about it. They're watching the numbers go up. They know that they're seeing people coughing and sneezing and explosive diarrhea, getting freaking measles. They can see the h5n1 exploding because everyone's got mass immunocompromisation. That's a lie. They're just in different levels of conscious or unconscious denial of where they're at with their complicity in mass sickness and mass death and suffering. You can't really not be conscious of. That's like being like, I'm not, I'm not thinking when I scrub. That's like when it's like when when a Gen Xer goes like, oh, I don't think about what other people think about. I don't care about cool. I'm above it. I don't think about the Levi's 501 label that I scrubbed off of my jeans. Oh, by the way, it is. I mean, there's no label because I don't care about being cool. I don't think about what other people think. I don't care what other people think, except I want people. This is a normal thing for that generation for some reason, but it's the same thing. Like you can't not think about the thing that you're thinking about, and when you tell other people to stop making you think about that thing by telling them take off that mask, which is very common, right? You are already thinking. The fact that these people are having these like rageful reactions, or like when you do that, when people do that anti-masker ridiculing, they are thinking about. They're doing that because they're really, really thinking about their ongoing complicity in these crimes. Anyway. So the cows are coming home to roost. You're going back to lockdown. It's time to end though. So I'm not saying that you should follow. I'm not saying that like you have to follow Ben Affleck's daughter, although you might want to think about what like also think about, right? Why aren't more of your celebrities doing the right thing? They have the power to influence millions and millions of people, right? If they're power to influence millions and millions of people, right? If it's like, why are they're making choices every day, every single one of them, right? And one of the choices is my career in Hollywood and making a lot of money and being famous is more important than everyone's health. Because I could help educate a lot of people on that, but I'm going to choose to not, and I think that alone also causes a lot of cognitive dissonance. I think, the reality is I think that almost everybody is living in a perpetual, I mean, if you're in the West, you've been living in a forever cognitive dissonance, but I think most people are living in a deep and deepening dissonance. And that's, they're already there. And so when I say you're going into lockdown, part of that was to get people to click on the thing. But another thing is to say, part of it is, I mean, I want people to say, no, we're not. Because there's a lot of people saying, hey, get ready for lockdowns. And so people are saying, you're going to have to come for me. I will have my gun. The government's going to have to, over my cold, dead hands, will I stay in my house and not go to the restaurant and not go to my CrossFit gym. You're gonna have to bring an army to keep me in my house. We will have, the revolution in this country, just like in our forefathers did. If you try to stop me from my freedoms, and the reality is like there's a good chance there won't be a lockdown. There's a good chance that there won't, because the government don't care if you get sick and die, right? And imagine you're a billionaire. Are you going to pay? You're paying all your politicians. You're paying all of your media and health experts. Are you going to pay them to say, hey, it's lockdown time. People get mad. Get rid of your politician. Then you got to buy another one. Right? And then you're back to square one. People are going to not follow the lockdown. Your politician loses. You got to buy another one. Right? It's not very efficient, right? So there's a good chance. I mean, obviously, what I don't even know if the West is capable of doing a lockdown at all, to be 100, right? Even if the people and the government, not the government, don't care about the people. The government do whatever the business wants. But even if the billionaires that run the West, the capitalists that run the West, wanted to do one, I don't even know if they could do one. You know, I don't know if even if there was a different government, the people are so selfish, unfortunately, that what they've shown, right? 90% of people are showing that every day. I don't think they could do it. I mean, some countries have got it done. You got to be organized. You have to have strong enough community care that you center like the community for real and not yourself and your face and your public persona and, you know, your cool credits, right? The West doesn't have that. It's too selfish and individualistic and infantile. Right, and you can look up the countries that have successfully done lockdowns and eliminated COVID, but it's not no Western country has actually done it. They've done slight partial shutdowns of some bars and some clubs. That's not a lockdown. None of them have enforced it at all. There've been some mass mandates, not even followed for the most part, and that was causing tantrums, liberal and conservative, right and left tantrum, Democrat, Republican tantrums all over Europe, all over the US, all over Canada. I don't even know if it's possible to do a lockdown. If h5n1 jumps from cows to humans and is human to human transmissible, which is a high likelihood, and it's 50% death rate, I don't even know if that could happen. What if h5n1 shows 50% death rate? Number one, it would probably not be exactly that. It'd probably drop a little bit when they find some treatments for it. But you know, what will probably happen is a whole lot of people are going to die, just like what happens with COVID. Governments will completely screw it up, bungle a lot. They might try to have some limitations on where you can visit. That's going to backfire. Right-wingers are going to explode and come out and go, you know, I need my freedoms from Bill Gates, microchip, all that crap's going to come back. The rich that own the governments are going to lift those, if they even put them in place, and then lots of people are gonna get sick and die more. They're already getting sick and dying from measles, right? It's like it is a syndemic. Like I already made a video about it. It is a pan of pandemics. It's like all the viruses, all the illnesses, all the time. There's not like one. There's not like, oh, here's one. It's like I don't even know. It's like an omnidemic. You know, it is a uber ultra mega ubiquidemic. Every possible illness and virus is exploding. Every possible problem is not just pandemics too. There's lots of other things that are happening. But yeah, we can't even keep track of them all. I try my best. I can't keep track of them all. And so anyways, but I should probably get out of here because it's already late. But long story short, yeah, so on a macro bigger picture scale, the cows are coming home to roost, meaning the cows and the chickens are all getting the flu as they're roosting around and next to each other, sickening each other. That is mutating. It's spreading to humans. And it is going to get worse, so get ready for that. Try to find COVID conscious people to follow. I have found some people to follow that are saying the truth about these types of things. I was just spelling it wrong. Okay. Anyways, so Lola Germs does make videos that are actually true information on this platform. So I do recommend people check that out. Lola Germs, yeah, lots of videos on the blood-brain barrier, that it's airborne, your microbiome, and then your gut. And so there's lots of like, and these are like short videos that all like have lots of important information in them with actual cited white papers in science. I'm sure there's more than that, but this is just there's not very many. There's very, very little on this YouTube platform that's honest about actual health stuff and COVID related things. Very, very few. So I recommend that. You can follow, of course, us, and you can follow there's a lot of people. Holly has shared many resources in this over the course of this stream, so don't forget to check those out. And And yeah, and of course, everything we do here is as always supported through direct support through ko-fi.com/silverspook. We appreciate all the donations that you can afford because we know it's hard for everybody, but it's hard for us to keep doing this education without that support. So we do appreciate that. We are literally at the poverty level, so we are not rich by any stretch of the imagination. Nobody pays you and gives you promotion to algorithm to say true stuff, you know. But that's why we have to do it more, because we have lots of just, capitalist disinformation, and then there's also AI, generative AI magnifying that disinformation at almost just unclockable speeds. So we have to do more of this education as best as we can. And you can also support us at patreon.com/Neofeud, where you can get access to behind the scenes on what we're working on, like the Silver Spook. I just put out a recent April update, where we're out. The birds are singing. We are social distancing from the birds, enough that it's no indoor gatherings with birds though, even during the spring, except with plastic eggs. And if we cook eggs, the eggs are properly cooked. No runny yolks as well. Flowers are blooming. So like this is the Silver Spook Cooperative in the U.S. occupied Hawaii, where we're also doing land back and also doing pluricrop food security and medicinal plant growing. These are some of the pictures. This is the silver dog. When you're in your garden, it's very easy to deal with h5n1 spread, COVID spread, and you can also do food security, help the climate by restoring healthy ecology. It's like the garden is the best place. The garden is the best. What else can we say? It's basically a garden, and I come on here and then I do mass education and cyber anti-capitalist, anti-colonialist activities. Nothing illegal though. I just like share streams and social media feeds and make video games, such as Neofeud. Oh, also today. Oh, I another big announcement. Christopher, our Duke University Press of Duke University has released a book called Made in Asia America, why video games were never really about us. And I am one of the contributors. And also this art for the book itself. The art for the book itself was made by myself. And you can find that on the Duke University Press site. Just a little announcement from... Guillermo, this guy. Dr. Chris Pye, Kirvika Guillermo is a research profile. Kirvika Guillermo is a professor and educator in the Social Justice Institute at UBC, and one of the two leads on this book, Made in Asia America. And you can go and check that out and pick it up if you would like to. It's also, I think it's free to read on the site, or it was recently. And so I also made that art. So thanks to me for that. And of course, I always work. So this is some of the latest on Neofeud too. If you're like, so you've been talking about this virus stuff, I don't even know what a bird or a cow is, because I got COVID brain damage. And so all I want to hear about is Neofeud 2. And I don't know what I don't know why you're. What do you think? This is not the 12 Monkeys. This is not Resident Evil. This is the Cyberpunk channel, right? Okay. Well, anyways, I do still make Cyberpunk games. I'm nearly done with Neofeud 2. These are some of the scenes from Neofeud 2 that I'm still working on. And this is some ancient Stargate, James Spader decoded languages. No, this is alien languages I'm working on, and there lots of other updates on Neofeud 2 that you can get, among other things, on the Silver Spook Patreon. So consider becoming that. When you become a Silver Spook Patreon, you also get access to the Silver Spook Discord, and also you get access to the Silver Spook University. Silver Spook University is over 2.5 hours. Sorry, over 1,000 hours of all of the videos I've ever put out and content I've ever put out, information, education, and videos categorized according to topic to deal with the problem of what do you teach children today? What do you need to know today when lies about past, present, and future permeate formal schooling, modern books, and media? And also, if you want to support us, you can also get. So this is like what, like I said. Oh my gosh, it's hard to even find true information when you go to most institutions, and certainly in the West, it's very difficult. So that's what Silver University is for. You can also pick up Neofeud, which is a cyberpunk adventure game. That is the game that predated the one I was showing you, and it is a anti-capitalist, anti-racist, anti-imperialist cyberpunk adventure game in the vein of Game of Thrones and Neuromancer and Matrix, etc. And it is also not on sale right now, so you can wishlist it if you can't afford it. I understand. Also, you can get Neofeud is also, you can get it at Neofeud on itch.io for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And you can also get other games like Decolonators and Digistar, Pigeon with Gun, and Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Christian culture, and it is a book that critiques that culture, and it's also free. And also, you can follow at SilverSpook Games at Octodon.social, at SilverSpook Games at Mastodon.social, and you can also follow on Twitter at SilverSpook Guy, of course. Oh, you can follow Twitter at SilverSpook Guy, and you can also follow at SilverSpook Games, minus the E in silver for the games related stuff. Terminus C for the Terminus Cyberstar is a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim, and it's also in the vein of Deus Ex and System Shock 2, being worked on by a small group of people. I'm the content director and the lead writer of it. And of course, Holly, you can follow at the Tech Fairy. Holly is wife and partner here at the SilverSpook Cooperative, and producer and more with the Kate Nix music and variety show. Parent and caregiver to 2 Native Hawaiian children here. Writer, educator, and sapphic queer person. MECFS having a mask wearing person, of course. And this is the lesbian flag in 2001: A Space Odyssey. So good job to Stanley Kubrick for accidentally supporting lesbians. Well done, sir. Thank you to all the Patreon patrons on the list. Without your support, it becomes very difficult for us to keep doing this work. So thank you so much to all of you Patreon patrons. And yeah, until next time, be careful. Love your cows and love your birds. Maybe watch out for the aerosolized droplets and aerosolized particles coming out of them. Just watch out. But have a good time, and we'll see you next time on the SilverSpook stream.